In a city where secrets weigh more than gold, one detective carries a burden darker than the night. His partner in life and in crime solving may not be the ally he thought she was. A hidden betrayal begins to unravel, leading him into a maze of lies, danger, and shadows. Every clue pulls him deeper into a truth he may not survive uncovering. The closer he gets, the darker the bag becomes. And once it's opened, there's no turning back. The movie begins with the introduction of a detective named George. After some time, he arrives at a bar where a loud song is playing, and the atmosphere is restless. He is there to meet his boss. As soon as his boss notices him, he steps outside. They begin talking in a quieter place. George's boss confirms that his suspicion was correct. There are indeed traitors within their department. After saying this, he hands George a list with 5 names written on it. Shockingly, one of the names is his wife, Catherine. His boss explains that Catherine is an exceptional agent who has accomplished remarkable work. But recently, a highly classified device has been stolen from the UK, and such an act could not have been carried out by an ordinary agent. That is why his wife's name appears at the very top. If that device gets in the wrong hands, many innocent people can die. After hearing these words, George says that he needs a week's time. In a week, he will find out everything and bring it to light. Who is that traitor? Until then, he tells his boss that there is no need to report this anywhere else. Otherwise, all those people will be alert. Now they both start going, but they have no idea that someone has heard them. George is occupied with his planning, and we see him cooking with careful attention. After finishing, he heads upstairs to meet Catherine. It is then revealed that Catherine also knows there is a traitor within their department. At this point, the department's name is revealed. It is NCSC. George explains that he has invited 4 more people, and all of them will be joining the dinner. He adds that important discussions with everyone will take place during the meal. Catherine asks him if he is going to test the lie detector on all of them. George replies, no. He tells her that he has thought of something bigger than that.
I wanted to try something more elegant first.
He has mixed medicine in the cooked food, and she doesn't need to eat that food. After hearing these words, Catherine thinks for a while. Then on the other hand, we see the other 4 people who have been invited to dinner. Here is a girl named Zoe. Zoe asks why they have been called on such short notice, and if they are going to dinner, then why are only 4 people going? After hearing these words, James responds by saying that they are all friends, and this is how friends should be addressed. There is no need to think too much about it. Besides the 2 men, the other 2 people present are a married couple, Clarissa and Freddie. Now, all 4 of them arrive at the house, and dinner begins. Catherine is the first to speak, recalling how, in 2012, she gave the greatest support to the department. At the time of the war in Iraq, she wrote a code, and that code changed everything by shutting down their system. After hearing this, Clarissa is surprised. She works in the cybersecurity department and explains that the code she wrote has been reviewed by her many times. Yet she never knew who the original writer was. She admits she has been impressed by it for a long time and appreciates the brilliance behind the work. Following this, Freddie begins to speak. He recalls that his father was very fond of women, always surrounded by them. Then George was assigned the task of spying on him, and he soon discovered the truth. George performed his duty with great skill, gathering all the pictures and videos. But afterward, he made a grave mistake. During a family gathering, he played those very videos, which caused Freddie's parents to separate. His father's reputation was disgraced before the entire family. He felt very bad about this. After hearing these things, George understands that the effect of the medicine is happening. That is, he made the game interesting. Then these people will tell the truth. He tells everyone that New Year is coming soon. Why don't we talk about our own resolutions? But there is a catch in this. The person sitting on your right, you have to talk about his resolution. Zoe starts first and says to James that James wants a promotion at any cost. So she wants him to not chase this next year and forget this thing for a while, that he wants the biggest position. Then it's Clarissa's turn. Clarissa says that she suspects that her husband is cheating on her, so she wants Freddie to stay away from that woman and quickly tell the truth to everyone that he has cheated. Then Freddie gets angry and says that she keeps doubting him all the time, and this has come through her parents. He fires back at her family and claims he knows how many problems her family had. That's why she is doubting such a man who loves her. After hearing these things, George says that maybe he loves her or not, he doesn't know. But his affair is true. He also talks about that hotel where he always takes his mistress.
The Zeta Hotel in Clerkenwell.
I beg your pardon?
That's the hotel you prefer.
and he keeps talking to her during work. Now, Clarissa becomes emotional and feels utterly broken when George talks about the hotel. Suddenly, she loses control of herself and grabs the dinner knife, pushing it into Freddie's hand in frustration. The dinner comes to a sudden halt as everyone rushes to stop the chaos. Freddie has to be taken to the hospital immediately. After everyone leaves, George and Catherine begin packing the remaining food. Catherine quietly mentions that George had added a little too much medicine into the dishes. She points out how everyone was openly telling the truth without hesitation. George listens carefully, but the moment she leaves the room, his eyes fall on a ticket lying in the dustbin. It is a movie ticket with the date and time clearly printed. George recalls that Catherine had claimed she was at work that same day. The discovery shakes him, and his suspicions about her grow stronger. The next day, he questions her directly about where she had been. Catherine calmly repeats that she had gone for work. When George brings up the movie, she insists she has never even heard of it. George says nothing further, but secretly slips his ID card into her purse. Later, he returns to the department claiming he has forgotten his own card and requests a temporary one. Once inside, he heads upstairs where he unexpectedly runs into Freddie. Freddie quietly informs George that their boss had died the previous night.
You've heard about Mitchell. He's dead.
Nobody knows what exactly happened, only that he was drinking when he suddenly collapsed and began shaking violently. Freddie wonders if their boss had mentioned any case to George, but George stays silent, not wanting to reveal anything. Freddie himself remains a suspect, and George cannot afford to take chances. He then goes straight to Catherine to retrieve his card. When she exits her meeting, she hands it back without a word and leaves quickly. George heads to his office, puts on gloves, and begins checking Catherine's computer. He studies her schedule and discovers that on the day she claimed to be working, her trip was actually to Zurich. Coordinates of Zurich are also stored on her system, which George notes down before leaving. Meanwhile, Catherine finishes her meeting and visits Zoe, who is the department's counselor and doctor. Every agent is required to meet her once a month for mental health evaluation. Zoe begins asking Catherine questions about her life, her sleep, and her stress. Catherine admits that she has trouble sleeping and takes medication for it. Zoe inquires about the dosage, then remarks that Catherine's prescription is too low to be harmful. She reassures her that as long as she is being truthful, there is no need for an official report. Catherine agrees and quietly leaves the office. George, on the other hand, drives deep into the woods. Parking his car, he takes a small boat into the river. Fishing has always been his way of thinking clearly, and now he needs time to analyze everything. He replays the dinner conversations in his head, trying to connect the scattered pieces. Suddenly, he notices a car parked nearby. Recognizing it as James's, he immediately returns. James explains that the finance department had tracked an unusual account. The department always monitors and identifies to ensure none are misused. Recently, they discovered that an account under the name Margaret had been reopened, an account that was once tracked by the FBI 20 years ago.
Margaret Langsford. DOB and name match an SIS-generated passport from 2008.
A large transaction of £7 million had been transferred from that account to Zurich. James emphasizes the urgency of finding who used the account. George feels the ground slip beneath his feet when he hears this, as Catherine had recently traveled to Zurich. His suspicions deepen further. That evening, he takes Catherine to watch the same movie whose ticket he found earlier in the dustbin. Throughout the film, he studies her closely. Her reactions convince him that she is watching it for the first time. If she had already seen it before, her expressions would have been different. Returning home, George goes to meet Clarissa. She is surprised to see him, but he explains he needs her help. Despite the tension between her and Freddie, she still listens to George. He tells her that she works in surveillance and has access to camera systems. He asks her to redirect one of the cameras temporarily, so nobody can trace his movements. At first she refuses, but when George insists he has done this before, she eventually agrees. The next morning, as Clarissa shifts the camera angle, George enters her office and provides her with the Zurich coordinates he found earlier. He asks her to show him what is happening there. Clarissa warns him that he has only 3 minutes and 25 seconds before the system resets. Together, they zoom in on the location and see a desk where Catherine is seated. Clarissa smiles slyly, suspecting Catherine is secretly meeting someone. Soon, a man sits beside Catherine. They run facial recognition and identify him as Andrei, a Russian national. George urges Clarissa to record their conversation. The surveillance reveals that Catherine and Andrei are discussing a money transaction. Clarissa saves as much data as she can, but when the timer ends, the system locks automatically. If they continue, the feed will appear on all department screens. Panic sets in, and George instructs Clarissa to lock the system entirely. Freddy, who notices unusual activity from his end, calls George immediately. Not long after, their boss Arthur summons the entire team for a meeting. Arthur displays the image of a Russian man named Vadim on the screen. He explains that Vadim has been planning something massive with Andrei's assistance. Arthur then reveals that their satellite had been monitoring Vadim closely, but the system went offline for exactly 3 minutes and 25 seconds. In that brief window, Vadim managed to vanish. This could only mean that someone within their department was helping him.
How could he know unless someone here told him?
George's stomach sinks as he realizes his own actions, done with Clarissa's help, had unintentionally aided Vadim's escape. Arthur dispatches the team immediately, but George stays behind with Freddy. Freddy warns that if Vadim reaches Moscow, the consequences could be catastrophic. Freddy explains that their department had once developed a virus called Severe. This virus was designed to dismantle any nuclear weapon, but in the wrong hands it could be reversed and used destructively. Recently, the virus has gone missing. Now the urgency to find it has reached a peak. George listens, deeply shaken, realizing his mistake may have made things worse. He knows Clarissa can expose him at any time, and that fear grows stronger. Freddy approaches Catherine later and tells her that George could be in serious danger. If Vadim succeeds, George will be the first suspect. He warns her that George could be imprisoned and unable to defend himself. Catherine now learns of his suspicions. That night, as Catherine lies beside George, she notices the disappointment in his eyes. For the first time, they speak openly. George admits that he feels someone has set him up, knowing he would switch the system offline at the exact moment Vadim escaped. Catherine responds that this was indeed a setup designed for both of them. If the investigation continues, George will appear to be the traitor, and if the department uncovers her images with Andrei, she too will be destroyed. They both agree that they cannot remain passive anymore. They must act. The next morning, George invites James to join him while fishing, intending to put his new plan into motion. Out on the river, George confides that he plans to test everyone with a lie detector. James asks him directly whom he suspects. George falls silent, but James reveals that his own investigation shows Catherine had used the identity of Margaret, the same one linked to the Zurich account.
Margaret Langford, the passport name that Catherine used in '08.
Even though the department had long since erased it, she continued using the name secretly. George feels torn, unsure of his next step. Meanwhile, Catherine begins her own mission. She later hands all the coordinates to the CIA, informing them that Vadim is a global threat. She pushes them to act quickly. The CIA wastes no time, using drones to eliminate both Vadim and Andrei. Catherine's decision is calculated. She wants to end the threat and also remove suspicions about her connection to Andrei. After this, she confronts Arthur directly. She tells him that she knows he tried to trap both her and George, insisting that nothing in the department happens without his knowledge.
I can't see all the corners, but I can tell the shape. This, all yours.
She accuses him of manipulating the coordinates and of working with Vadim. Arthur calmly tells her she will never be able to prove it. Catherine admits she has no proof, but warns that she can still disrupt his plans. She advises him to watch the CIA drones closely. Arthur's plans collapse when the CIA drones strike and eliminate Vadim and Andrei. George begins lie detector tests with everyone. He carefully studies the graphs, noting how emotions spike and fall under stress. But when Clarissa takes the test, her emotional readings remain unnervingly steady. He realizes she has mastered techniques from her books on controlling emotions. This makes it impossible to catch her. Yet George knows that Arthur cannot be acting alone. Someone in the department has been supporting him. Determined, George calls everyone to another dinner gathering. Catherine places a gun on the table, announcing that nobody will leave alive until all questions are answered. Zoe notices that the rug beneath the table has been replaced, a chilling detail that suggests they are prepared for bloodshed. The atmosphere grows heavy as George begins his questioning. He turns first to Freddy, asking how long his affair with Zoe has been going on. Clarissa feels the floor vanish beneath her when Freddy admits the truth. He confesses it has been 7 to 8 weeks, knowing lying could lead to worse consequences. George continues, asking Clarissa her questions, then turns to James. He asks why James threw the movie ticket in the dustbin to make him doubt Catherine. James denies it, but George presents his thoughts aloud. He explains that James had always been connected to Arthur. James was the one who had stolen the virus and deliberately misled Catherine into meeting Andrei in Zurich. He had orchestrated everything so that George would suspect his wife, switch off the system, and give Vadim the chance to escape. When the department investigated, all the evidence would point to George. It was James's master plan to frame both George and Catherine at once. James finally loses control, pulls out a gun, and declares his guilt openly. But he is unaware that a hidden camera records everything. George had only been bluffing, but James had confessed without realizing. James fires, only to discover that his bullets are fake and were switched earlier. Catherine wastes no time and shoots him directly in the head. His body is quickly carried away and thrown into the river. Everyone feels shaken, but they all know this was the only way. If James had lived, Arthur would have eventually used him to destroy them. Now, with his confession recorded, George and Catherine hold solid proof of the truth. Arthur, aware of his own guilt, keeps silent and chooses not to pursue James's disappearance. He knows that reopening the case could drag him into exposure as well. The conspiracy is over. George and Catherine finally return to their normal lives. After exposing the largest threat within their department, they can breathe freely again. Their lives settle back into routine, but the shadow of what they uncovered lingers in silence. They have survived betrayal, danger, and deception. Yet together, they have proven stronger than the forces that tried to tear them apart. Now, the black bag is closed, but the memories remain with them forever. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more mysterious movies like this.